Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Friday edition of the State of Scottish Football here on the award-winning State of Mind Network. I'm joined by a familiar face to myself and Dave. Dave, has been several times we've worked together, but Jake, this is the first time me and you have been on this show, and you've chosen the Friday show for us to first work together. There's a lot of pressure on here. You've got to get your predictions right, Dave will tell you.
Well, last week I got a fair few predictions wrong. Specifically on the Thursday, I said Partick Thistle won't score many goals against Hamilton, and you've seen how that one went. So the pressure's right on tonight.
And Jake obviously is a long-suffering Dunfermline fan. I'm sure the chance to talk about the cinch Premiership gives you a bit of a rest this weekend.
Yeah, it definitely does, especially because I'm not going to the game this weekend either, so it's a bit of a rest from the Pars. Well needed, I think.
And a warm welcome along to everyone who is watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, everywhere you can get video. I'm pretty sure you'll find us, and probably places we don't want to be seen either, but I'm sure we're on there. We have a full card of cinch Premiership action to discuss this evening, and as you can see in the title, we are asking the question, can Celtic and Hearts pile the pressure on at the top of the table? Obviously, Celtic and Hearts playing on Saturday before the champions Rangers take their game at St Mirren Park, or New St Mirren Park, or whatever it's called now, on Sunday as your live Sky Sports game. Everybody in the comment section, let us know your predictions on the scores. We've got people coming in already. Feed the Bear coming in, saying evening to everyone, and the same with Harry Houdini. So if you are watching, let us know where you're watching from and let us know your predictions for the games. We're going to start with the game at Celtic Park on Saturday. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff as Celtic take on St Johnstone. As always, if you are going to be putting a bet on this weekend, please gamble responsibly, but here are the odds for both teams. Celtic go into the game as 1-4 favourites. It's 5-1 for the draw and it's 12-1 for St Johnstone. Celtic on a kind of run of 2 wins and a draw. St Johnstone are on this kind of lovely, if you've got OCD, you'll love this. It goes loss, win, loss, win, loss. And if you're a Celtic fan, panic at the case that it might turn into a W at Celtic Park at the weekend. Now, David, Celtic went to the back of this off the 2-0 victory over Ferencváros at that ridiculous half-free kick-off on Tuesday afternoon. What did you make of the performance?
Yeah, very good performance on Tuesday evening, Colin. I mean, the first half was turgid, a bit quiet. I gave it spark very little, but then once Furuhashi opened the score for Celtic, there was no answers from the visitors, and Celtic went on to win the game fairly comfortably. And then there might have been a disappointment. There might have not been more goals, but I think Tuesday just showed where Celtic are at just now and where they are compared to where they were maybe at 4 or 5 weeks ago. They're a completely different team now, and Alex Postecoglou used the international break to feed the seeds, so to speak. And over the last 7 days, you've seen 2 very good performances. First and foremost, because Motherwell and then beating Ferencváros on Tuesday evening.
Yeah, and Jake, the last time Celtic played at home was that draw against Dundee United, and they went into that game without Kyogo Furuhashi and Callum McGregor. Both of them look as if they'll start on Saturday. How much of a difference do they make to that Celtic team?
The difference he makes absolutely massive. I mean, we've seen Kyogo Furuhashi come back and score a couple of goals, important goals since then. I said last week, the movement and what he brings to Celtic's front line is just incredible. It's exactly what they need going into the rest of the season. And, you know, Callum McGregor's really owning his captaincy now. He's growing into it, and he looks to be one of the most important players for Celtic at the moment. And they'll be really glad that he's been back over the last couple of weeks.
It does look as if Celtic's injury concerns are easing slightly. Ange Postecoglou saying at the pre-match press conference today that both James McCarthy and Josip Juranovic will be back in for the game, and one for the Scotland squad here. It looks as if James Forrest will be back in training next week. Who knows, David, maybe he can work himself into contention for that game against Moldova.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got to be steady steps for James Forrest. I mean, he's a very good player. He's probably one of Celtic's best players in that specific position. I mean, he offers an attacking instinct to that Celtic side. And that's the thing. Celtic have been doing well fairly recently without the services of James Forrest. And James Forrest has shown through other managers such as Lennon and Rodgers how big a player and influential player he is for Celtic. And James Forrest working alongside Furuhashi and Jota is a very exciting watch for Celtic supporters.
Yeah, you mentioned Jota. We have to speak about him, Jake. His performance over the last couple of weeks has been outstanding, and I'm still seeing videos on my timeline of that pass through to Kyogo Furuhashi. It's one of those ones we're going to see it over and over again. If he'd maybe done that for Manchester United or Barcelona, they still wouldn't stop talking about it.
Yeah, and with good reason, we're seeing it over and over again. It was a special ball. I mean, everything against Ferencváros that came good for Celtic came through Jota. I mean, he was absolutely outstanding, and he's been arguably Celtic's best player for weeks now, and they'll be hoping that he can keep up his good performances because, like I said, everything good for Celtic against Ferencváros came through him.
Now, an interesting point coming in here from Harry Houdini, who says he's hoping the rumours are true and that Celtic are indeed linked with Maeda. He looks some player. Now, we mentioned Kyogo Furuhashi earlier on. That's obviously someone that Ange Postecoglou has seen playing in the J League. Now, Maeda's someone that Ange Postecoglou has actually previously coached. He's another forward, and it just looks as if that Ange is looking at this style of football he's trying to implement, and he's still thinking, I've not got enough attacking options, David, and he's going, let's do it, let's get another forward in. If Celtic keep getting the forwards and they all start to link and they all offer something, the goal difference at the end of the season could be frightening.
Yeah, on the goal scoring front, I would agree with that because, I mean, take Furuhashi out of the team. I mean, I've completely forgotten his name now, but no, not Abad, another one, sorry. The other striker.
Say that again?
Who's the other striker, sorry?
Jakob Mattis.
Jakob Mattis.
Yeah,
sorry, I completely forgot who it was there. Yeah, they've been very good signings for Celtic. But also, you look at this on the other side and say Celtic could add more goals to their game, and it's a very good thought from a Celtic point of view. I mean, they've still got a lot to give, and they still have a lot of exciting football and exciting opportunities to come. And could they be sealing games off sooner than they can be? Absolutely, 100%. And they need the forward thinking players in there. I mean, Forrest coming back will be a huge positive, and Jota is in the form of his life at Celtic right now, but another striker goes a long, long way to making sure that Celtic can be right up there in the season and challenge for leagues and cups. Because, I mean, I'm going to compare Rangers for one specific minute here and say Rangers don't have too many options up front. Celtic, if they go and bolster their attacking options, I can see them getting very, very excited towards the business end of the season.
Yeah, and Maeda comes, or if he does come, he's coming with 18 goals in the J League so far this season, which would be a very healthy input to Celtic's forward line. Let's speak about the opposition, though, and St Johnstone, as we say, 12-1 for this game, coming off the back of a 3-0 defeat at home to Livingston at the weekend, Jake. And I don't know if you saw, but some of the defending was like stuff you used to get on the old Christmas DVDs, the own goals and bloopers. Yeah. Effie Ambrose having a typical Effie Ambrose performance, and I'm guessing Colin Davidson will be desperate to get back into that sort of resilient St Johnstone defending that has seen them go on and kind of challenge the bigger teams, especially in Europe this season.
Yeah, definitely. You wouldn't be surprised to see some of those goals last weekend on Football's Funniest Moments or whatever, because that's what it was. It was comical defending. It's not the St Johnstone defence that we're used to seeing. As you say, they've been strong in the past, and Callum Davidson will be hoping to get back to that way this weekend, although it'll be hard for him. Last weekend against Livingston, we said last week Livingston had only scored 3 goals all season before going into that game, and they scored 3 goals against St Johnstone. So obviously Callum Davidson will be really worried about their defensive issues, and quite rightly so.
Now we look at the team news ahead of the game for St Johnstone. Sean Rooney is out with that injury that he sustained in the 3-0 defeat to Livingston. Crawford and Gordon do look as if they will be back, though, alongside Craig Bryson, who will make his first appearance of the season for St Johnstone. And another one that is worth keeping an eye on is midfielder Tomer Altman, who has been training with the club from Maccabi Tel Aviv. Callum Davidson saying in the press today that he's looking to sign him on a deal until the end of the season. Now, Celtic got into this game with a chance to go 1 point behind Rangers, and for the first time this season, and probably for the first time in a number of years, David, they'll have the chance to be the team coming from behind and putting the pressure on. Do you think that will be the case, and do you think Celtic will continue to put the pressure on Rangers over the next coming games?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Celtic's in the form of their life so far this season. I mean, the opening part of the season, they were playing good football, but just weren't getting results, and that was a frustrating thing for Ange Postecoglou. And I mean, if you reflect back on the Hearts debacle and various other things, it's a completely different dynasty 2 months down the line, and I think Celtic I think you're playing St Johnstone at a really good time. I mean, St Johnstone have that injury to Rooney. They're not exactly playing the greatest style of football right now, and they've got a lot of problems defensively. So I fancy Celtic to be professional tomorrow, get the job done, and also I fancy them to go and keep this momentum going and moving forward.
Couple of stats before we look at the predictions. St Johnstone's last win against Celtic comes back in May 2016, a 2-1 victory at McDermott Park. If you're looking for the last time that they won at Celtic Park, you have to go back as far as March 2015, where a Danny Swanson goal resigned a Ronnie Dyler's Celtic side to a home defeat. That's how far back we need to go. Jake, you're saying that with a smile. I can kind of guess where your prediction might be going here, so I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I don't expect anything other than a Celtic win, to be honest, especially after seeing St Johnstone last weekend, and Celtic seem to have turned a corner, so I'm going to say 3-0 Celtic.
3-0 Celtic. You're agreeing with our viewer over in Miami, Jerry H. Let us know how warm it is over there this week, Jerry. He's going for 3-0 victory for Celtic as well. David, I'll come to you.
Yeah, 2-0 Celtic.
2-0 Celtic. Well, I've actually written mine down, so I promise I'm not copying anyone. I've went for 3-0 Celtic as well. So everyone going for a comfortable home win there. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comment section. How do you think this one will go? You can do that as we preview the game in Paisley on Sunday. It's a 12 p.m. kickoff. It's live on Sky as St Mirren, who are undefeated in 5 games, take on Rangers, who will be looking to kind of continue this bounce after the 2-0 victory over Brøndby yesterday. Jake, what did you make of the performance against Brøndby? It was very professional, I thought, from Rangers.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was going to describe it, a professional performance. I thought they started the game really well. Obviously, they were 1 goal up within 20 minutes, a good header from Leon Balogun. And yeah, that's exactly how to sum up professional. I don't think, they could have done better in the second half. They could have put the game to bed. But on the other hand, they defended fairly well and they managed to keep a clean sheet. I thought Alfredo Morelos, to be honest with you, was fairly poor leading the line for Rangers. I thought he could have been on the score sheet a number of times as well. But yeah, overall, a good professional performance in Europe and kind of similar to the Rangers we've been used to seeing in Europe over the last few seasons.
Yeah, and it was a massive boost for the coefficient yesterday, as I believe it actually helped Scotland overtake Russia to go into the 9th place in the coefficient table. If anyone's an FC coefficient fan, as I think Jack Donnelly mentioned on Wednesday night. David, you look at it, obviously Gerrard's came out now in the press and he's had a go at Morelos. Jake's saying he just didn't look as if he was the Morelos of old. What can be done here? Does he get dropped? Do you keep going with him? What would you do if you're the Rangers manager?
Man management's a big thing in football, Colin, and he's pretty much into man management else all his time since arriving at Ibrox a good 2-3 years ago now. And this will be a similar situation. I mean, the times when Morelos was getting sent off very continuously in Gerrard's first season in charge, this will need to have the same reprimands when it comes to Gerrard's man management. And if he can get the best at Morelos, it's a win-win for Rangers. But do I see Morelos hitting the good times of old? I don't think so. I mean, and this is going to be the worry for Rangers moving forward. If Morelos isn't firing enough fronts, is there a worry that Kemar Roofe will banging 20-25 goals for Rangers this season? I don't think so. And with Rangers, that'll come repercussions in terms of getting more success. And further down the line, it'll provide more pressure on Steven Gerrard. And for Morelos, he's got all the capabilities in the world. I mean, Liverpool and other Premier League clubs and French clubs in particular aren't coming in and providing interest for no mean reason. So it just shows he's a talented player in there. Sometimes his attitude and his mentality could be a whole lot wrong, and it's up to Morelos and Gerrard to find a solution to this.
Yeah, and I mean, he is on 99 goals, which is a phenomenal return for any striker in Scottish football. But you look at his goals over the last couple of seasons, and what I was mentioning on Wednesday when I was on was that when you see his discipline starting to improve, his goal return starts to go down the way. And when you look at the heights of when he scored 30 goals or 29 goals one season, I think he gets sent off 3 or 4 times. And then you look at it last year, no red cards, and his return was something like 14, 15 goals. Jake, if you're looking at it, you're saying you sort of want the best of both worlds out of him. You're looking for a mature performance, but you can't have a striker that's declining.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I mean, I was listening to Open Goal the other day, and Andy Halliday, obviously, who played with Alfredo Morelos at Rangers, said that Morelos is like a streaky player. You know, he gets one goal and then he goes on a run and scores 10, 15. You know, there was, I think, 2 seasons ago, he scored, 18, 19, 20 goals almost in the first half of the season. And then he didn't score for a couple of games and they ended up only scoring 4 or 5 over the second part of the season. So, yeah, you really need to get him back to his best. If Rangers, obviously they've got Kemar Roof there, but as Dave says, I'm not so sure he's capable of scoring 20, 25 goals a season as we've seen Morelos do in the past as well.
I think what you've got to look at with Roof as well is he has got that injury kind of record that follows him as well. He picked up a really bad one when he was at Leeds, I think it was, and one when he was at Anderlecht. He's had a couple of injuries since he's been at Rangers. You do need sort of more than just a one talisman to turn to. And if you're a Rangers fan and Morelos isn't putting the ball in the back of the net, if Roof's out injured, you're looking at Sakala, not really done a lot since he's came in, or the ever aging Jermaine Defoe, who's only made one appearance this season. I wouldn't be surprised if Gerrard looks in the transfer market in January for another striker. What do you think about that, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been this outcry for a long time since Gerrard's took over at Ibrox about why has he not brought in extra strikers. And he's had the budgets, don't get me wrong. I mean, he's brought in midfielders, he's brought in defenders, he's brought in a certain John McLaughlin throughout the years to combat the support that Al McGregor and the Rangers go. So the budget would certainly be there from Gerrard. And then you'll get this argument from Gerrard publicly saying, well, we've not spent money on transfer fees. And I can agree with that and I can acknowledge that. But also, there's another side to this where things are getting messy or things are getting out of hand. You need to go into the market. The $1 million question is what is in the market and what is available that will suit Rangers' playing style. Only the experts will know that. Only the analysts will know that. But from Gerrard's point of view, he needs to get strikers in, and if he can get strikers in, a bit of freshness does the world of good. I mean, I'll go back to Rangers when they were in the 1990s. And sorry, Celtic fans for mentioning this, but I think it's a very valid point. The time they won the 9 in a row, the strengthening in each position every season, which probably helped getting the success they did. Celtic as well, when they reached their 9 in a row, they strengthened almost in every position, which helped them. And Rangers aren't consistent enough for me in all departments. I'm going to be honest with you and say that, because, I mean, they are a really good side, as are Celtic, obviously. But when you look at Rangers, the reason why they've probably only won one trophy is probably because they haven't strengthened in the correct areas. And when they've ever played Celtic in Scottish Cup finals League Cup finals or came up close in such as St Johnstone last season, you looked at one specific areas and went, we're short here.
You speak about the League Cup final, and I think that's a good segue onto St Mirren, because everyone remembers the League Cup match against Rangers last season for St Mirren, where a certain Jamie McGrath popped up to score the winning goal late on. Now, he has been talk of a new contract offer at St Mirren, despite the fact of a lot of interest from both clubs north and south of the border. Jake, he's come out and he said that he feels privileged to receive such an incredible offer for St Mirren. Do you think he's one that's going to hang around, or do you think this is him saying thanks, but it's time for me to go?
Yeah, I think it's the latter, I'm afraid. If there's any St Mirren fans watching, I can't see him being around for much longer. He's been exceptional, really, for St Mirren. He's been their best player for this season and last season. And yeah, I definitely won't be surprised if he heads down south very soon. But St Mirren fans, again, enjoy him while you've got him, because he's a really talented player.
That he is, and you saw that in the performance over Ross County last week, where they won 3-2. Eamon the Wolf Brophy showing me up because I said that he wouldn't get any more than about 2 or 3 goals this season, and I think he's already on that with about another 30 games to go, so that is shutting me up. But again, we'll touch on Ross County in a minute. St Mirren undefeated in 5. It is a difficult place to go, as both Celtic and Rangers are found on their trips to Paisley. The kind of odds when you look at it, St Mirren look as if they're the heavy outsiders, but then you've got that sort of that European bounce. It either goes in your favour or against you. You can either be tired from running around on the Thursday night to going into the game at Sunday lunchtime, or the fact that they picked up that victory, it keeps the momentum going. David, which way do you see this one going? I think for me, Rangers, they might be a bit leggy, but they should still have enough in the tank.
Yeah, I mean, the last time St Mirren played in Telly, of course, to beat Aberdeen, and that was the springboard to them going in that 5-game unbeaten run. So it just shows what the power of television can do to a football club. But as for this weekend, I do think Rangers have too much for St Mirren, I'm going to be honest with you. But looking at it, it's not very often that the Saints go marching into a Glasgow one of the Old Firm team. Oh, sorry, I should say Glasgow 2, before I get absolutely busted here, as strong form as their opponents. With both Rangers and St Mirren having won 3 and drawn 2 of the last Premiership games, there's every reason the Paisley Club supporters should be feeling more confident than ever heading into this weekend's meeting. And with the likes of McGrath and Brophy do very well just now. And I'll be honest and say Jim Goodwin's done a very astounding job at St Mirren. And it's another big game for St Mirren because, I mean, they've picked up a very good victory over Ross County last weekend, which might be wrong. I think guiding them into the top 6. And St Mirren will want to gain a bit of a ground in between them and the bottom 6. So it's a big game for St Mirren, but I fancy Rangers to come out and be professional and get the job done.
I'll let you start with the predictions this time round after your Saints go marching in pun.
So I hate a pun, actually. We'll go for 2-1 Rangers.
2-1 Rangers. Jake, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, to be honest, I think Rangers have just got a bit too much for St Mirren. I know they're unbeaten in 5 games, but I just think Rangers will be full of confidence after the win over Brøndby, and I think they'll win 2-0.
2-0. Well, I hate to say I'm copying people, but as I say, I do have it written down. I've went with Rangers to sneak it 2-1. I think it will be a very close game, and I'm sure it'll be a good game for anyone who's tuning in. As I said, live on Sky, 12 o'clock on Sunday. Let's take a trip now to the capital, where Hearts have the opportunity to go top of the table come 5 p.m. on Saturday as they face a Dundee side fresh off a 2-1 victory over Aberdeen. If you are putting this one on the coupon, the odds you've got at the minute is 1-2 for Hearts, 3-1 for the draw, and Dundee are out as far as 6-1. This game is on pay-per-view on Hearts TV. Just make sure that you've worked out how to get around the daft VPN settings that they seem to set up that makes you think that if you're any further south than Glasgow, then you're sitting in England. But if you're interested in watching that one, check it out. Hearts obviously go into the back of this off the 1-1 draw at Ibrox with Craig Halkett scoring in the last couple of seconds. But they do go in, Jake, without manager Robbie Neilson, who is sitting out the first of his 3-game ban. Do you think that'll have much of an impact on them as they come up against Dundee?
I think it's a possibility. I mean, we've seen Robbie Nelson's quite clearly up for it this season. That's why he's got this ban. You know, he's been shouting at his players from the touchline probably more than he was last season in the Championship. We've seen him, you know, going up for it with Scott Brown as well earlier in the season. So I think he has had a big influence on his players from the touchline so far. However, obviously Hearts have started exceptionally, and you know, players like Benny Beningame, as I mentioned last week as well, have been absolutely outstanding, and the likes of Barry Mackay as well. So I don't think it'll have too much of a bearing on this weekend's result, but I think it's possible that it could have an effect on the players.
Yeah, Dave, I mean, obviously, Neilson, he's a bit of a divisive figure at Hearts. Last season, the fans were desperate to let him go. Now he's got the chance to put his side top of the cinch Premiership after 10 games. It's been a fair turnaround, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when Hearts could beat Brora back in March, it was only a foregone. We really think it was a foregone conclusion. Nielsen was receiving his books or his jotters, for a better word, at Tynecastle, but he's took pre-season like a piece of cake. To be honest with you, he's used pre-season as an opportunity to go and get some ideas into his players, but also tidy some things up. And I think Hearts took advantage of that because, if you remember, the season finished for Hearts at the end of April, and they didn't have a competitive game until the middle of July just because of the way the Championship works compared to the Premiership. So that probably was a massive advantage for Hearts. And Hearts have got a bit more fire in the belly again this season. They got a bit of fire in the belly last season, and it kind of waded a little bit because they were so far in front and fairly comprehensive in that championship, and they've got that fire in the belly again. And this is a big game for Hearts, and it's a big game for Dundee as well tomorrow, because I mean, there's a lot of baggage that comes with this fixture based on email gate 18 months ago.
I was wondering how long it would take for Email Gate to show up. Obviously, we're looking at the John Nelms situation where basically the vote from Dundee relegated Hearts into the Scottish Championship. And let's just say there's no love lost between the two teams. And Budge basically coming out and saying as much in the press this week. But look, it's not the most ridiculous thing I've heard this week. I don't know if either of the two of you saw the Football Scotland article on Barry Mackay this week.
No,
I don't think I did.
No, someone who used to play in the Scottish Premiership, and I've completely forgot his name because it was such a ridiculous article, has compared Barry Mackay to Celtic legend Lubo Moravchik.
Okay.
Jake, I mean, people just say anything just to get a couple of words on a paper or a website, don't they?
Yeah, it certainly seems to be that way. It's certainly with that article. I mean, don't get me wrong, Barry Mackay is a good player, but I just, no comparison.
Yeah, it's one of them ones you're sitting going, what? Like, you kind of look at it and you scroll and you go, no, that's definitely, and you look at the date and you go, no, it's not April 1st either. Look, it was just a wee joke. We'll move on from that. It was a genuine article, though. You can go out and look at it. I've not made that up. Dundee go into the game, the 2-1 victory over Aberdeen. Griffiths getting his first goal in Dundee colours since his return to Dens Park. David, what have you made of Griffiths since he's made that move from Glasgow to Dundee?
I think he needed a goal last weekend, to be honest with you, Colin, because I mean, his start at Dens Park's been nothing but pitiful. I mean, you look at it and say, sharpness just wasn't there. That flare incident against St Johnstone in the Premier Sports Cup, which was just bad to say the least. And I think Dundee got the blessing of disguise, just in the sense of, obviously, if that SPFL ruling had came in prior to that Aberdeen games, because it was expected to be, they were expected to be obviously the Thursday before that Aberdeen game. Had that came in, I don't think Dundee would have picked up the result, or indeed had that firepower in front to go with Griffiths, because Griffiths and Jason Cummins are two different strikers, don't get me wrong, but back onto Griffiths, and he needed that goal massively. That'll kickstart his tenure at Dundee now, I think, but also the main thing which helped in that win last weekend was Charlie Adam, massive player for that Jason Peake side, and he was massive in terms of the outcome in that game, and Griffiths needs to start scoring more goals for my liking. In terms of Griffiths, he's probably on the scrap heap at Celtic now. There's still an opportunity, probably, but that opportunity will be limited by the minute, and it's probably a foregone formality that he's either going to go to Dens Park next season or indeed go to any other club, wherever, of course. So he needed that goal last weekend, and that'll do his confidence the world of good.
Jerry H coming in to clarify, it was Eamon Bannon that made that comment about Barry Mackay and Lubo Moravchik. I mean, maybe Eamon Bannon should go and get his eyes tested this week. That sounded like a Charlie Nicholas put down. You're better than that, Colin. Come on. Right, so Hearts go into this with a chance to go top of the table. Looking at the injury list, Hearts have a full squad to pick from. Sean Byrne, the real absentee in that Dundee side, as Charlie Adam comes back into contention once again. I'm going to start the predictions this time out just so I can prove that I'm not copying anybody. Look, I think Dundee, away from home, haven't been the best. Hearts seem to put their best performances together at home, put 2 and 2 together, and what'd you get? I'm going for a 4-0 Hearts victory. Jake, how do you see it going?
Well, I said last week, and I agree with Dave, that Lee Griffiths had to get a goal, and he has got it, and I think maybe that'll get him firing now. So I fancy Dundee to score, but I also fancy Hearts to win. I'm going to say 3-1.
3-1. David, wrap us up.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a few permutations very briefly, and just in the sense of the midfield, and you mentioned Bayern there. I think Devlin and Baningame will run over the Dundee midfield tomorrow because Bayern, McGee, and Adam are a really good partnership. And if you take one at that midfield, it's gung ho for Dundee. So I fancy Hearts to be consistent tomorrow, win 3-0.
3-0. So we're all going for a comfortable victory for Hearts. Let's take this opportunity just halfway through to give a bit of a plug to our sponsors. It is Etiv Watches. If you are looking for a present for a loved one ahead of the Christmas rush, do check out Etiv Watches. They have a lovely selection online. If you look at the comments section or the bio of this video, you will see a link to Etiv's website where if you put a watch in your basket and take it to checkout, you will get 15% discount. So do click on that link below, check them out, and you never know, you might just be able to get your Christmas sorted a lot quicker than you thought. So check out Etiv Watches, who sponsor the state of Scottish football. 3 games down, 3 games to go, and it's taken us half an hour. But let's talk about the other club in Scotland who's not Falkirk, that's in a complete mess, and that is Aberdeen. Aberdeen go into this, no wins in 10 now. 2-1 loss to Dundee at the weekend. But you'd think that maybe Dave Cormack being on the radio, trying to get the fans, trying to encourage the fans to come along, support their team, get behind Stephen Glass. Massive game against Hibs at the weekend, but they've come out and capped the attendance at 9,700 for this game to avoid the COVID passport checks. Jake, surely that's just a case of going in one ear and straight out the other, but trying to encourage the fans to come along.
Yeah, I mean, it is exactly that. They're shooting themselves in the foot there. I mean, if they've got any chance of getting a result against Hibs this weekend, you know, every team needs the backing of their fans at the best of times. You know, we missed it last season. Obviously, we're having no fans in at all for the majority of the time, and you know, capping the attendance this season and the first season that fans are back is just something I didn't expect to happen, to be honest, and especially for a club like Aberdeen who are struggling early on in the manager's new tenure.
You look at it, Dave, and it's like you're trying to get the fans to get behind you, be that 12th man, but they're hoping that less than 65% of season ticket holders come along to this game so they don't have to hire a couple of stewards to check the vaccine passports. Now, your views on vaccine passports will be up to yourself. Everyone's got their own view on it. But the fact that the club are cutting back on costs to deliberately reduce the attendance, surely that's only going to have an adverse effect on the fan base.
Yeah, and I think there's been an adverse effect on the fact that I think Aberdeen Football Club are noticing there's a lot of negativity around the playing side of things at this precise moment in time, and I think that's why they've took the reason to halt the attendance at 9,700 more than anything else. Because I mean, you're up against the Hibs side that they look at this as an opportunity to reignite the season. As well Aberdeen, of course, but from an Aberdeen point of view, they need a win. They need a win as soon as possible. Where did they get the win? It's the $1 million question right now. As for Hibs, they lost 2 in the trot to Rangers and indeed to United. Jack Ross will be looking for a reaction. If he goes and gets that reaction, it'll be quite sad to an extent, Colin, because you look at this, a potential very good Hibs win, and go, okay, very good performance, season's back on track, and we're doing it in front of 800 supporters. Whilst for Aberdeen, if they go and pick up this win tomorrow, it's okay, our season's back. The Stephen Glass doubters will be, let's put it this way, the glass will be quarter full because there'll still be some Glass supporters that will be very much against Stephen Glass. But instead of the glass out cup being very full, the glass will be quarter full. And if Glass can go and pick up that win tomorrow, it will be in front of a crowd in 9,700, but probably 8,900 Aberdeen fans, which will make it very deary and very quiet, to say the least.
Yeah, you're talking about basically 13,000 seats lying empty just because they don't want to put a couple of £100 on to hire some stewards for a couple of hours. It just seems perplexing to me that you're trying to get the fans on board and then you're doing everything to discourage them from coming along to see your team. It doesn't make sense to me. But you look at it, you're speaking about if they don't get the win against Hibs. You look at this next run, obviously at home to Hibs on Saturday, Then they're away to Rangers on Wednesday night, and then next Saturday they're at home to Hearts. Jake, if this keeps going, then there's every chance, with results going against Aberdeen, that they could find themselves this time next week facing Hearts to avoid going into that relegation playoff space.
And if you said that at the start of the season, I don't think anyone would have believed you, to be honest. Aberdeen shouldn't be in this situation. They've appointed Stephen Glass, and clearly it hasn't went very well. This game against Hibs is absolutely massive for their season. If they don't get that, if they don't beat Hibs, I can't see them, beating Rangers, and I can't see them beating Hearts. And it's just going to get worse and worse for them. But with regards to the fans, not like the full stadium not being full, as I said before, they just seem to be shooting themselves in the foot and not allowing themselves to have that full 12th man behind them to help them get that win that's just so important for them at this stage of the season.
Do you know what? I'm going to go out and I'm going to say it, because I think this is completely ludicrous. If there's any Aberdeen fans watching right now and you want to go to that game tomorrow, go along and support your team. Take the 100% of the season ticket holders and get into that ground. If that means that your team gets a fine, but your team gets the points, then just get in the ground. Deal with the problems after that. Don't be discouraged from going away. You've spent your hard-earned money. You've spent long enough away from the football. Get yourself along to Pittodrie tomorrow afternoon if you are wanting to do that. Don't let this be a discouragement. I think it's a shambles and something that Aberdeen will have to look at next week and admit that they got wrong.
I'm going to be brutal. I'm going to be brutal here very briefly, Cole, by saying Dave Cormack, since he's arrived at Aberdeen, has been very vocal and wanting to interact with the fans, wanting to be transparent with the fans. But where's the transparency when he's wanting 9,800 people inside Pittodrie, he's leaving 30,000 empty seats? And you're right, if there's people wanting to go along, because I think people would rather see people with bumps in seats rather than seeing Aberdeen Football Club be like, okay, we picked up a 2-1 win, but there's no repercussions in terms of fines here.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. I can't think of any reason as to why they would want to do it. Let's go and speak about Hibs now. Obviously, we mentioned they go into this on the back of a 3-0 defeat to Dundee United. They are still without Ryan Porteous, who is suspended for this game. Nathan Wood came in and deputised at the weekend, his first league performance since he moved up from Middlesbrough. McGuinness and Mackay both out for this game. Jack Ross is just having a bit of a bad luck with the likes of suspensions and injuries at the minute, and I think if he manages to get through this game and pick up the 3 points, he might see it as a wee bit of a turning step, especially ahead of the clash against Celtic midweek.
Yeah, and if they can win this one and then get players back for the game against Celtic, then he probably will be thinking like that. You mentioned Wood coming in last weekend for his debut, and going on reports from people who were at the game and watched the game, I don't think he had a very good game at all. Obviously, they conceded 3 goals at home to Dundee United, which I don't think anybody would have really expected, to be honest, as good as a start as Dundee United have had. But yeah, they'll be looking forward to getting Porteous back after this game. But as you said, no, if they can pick up the points in this one, then I think Jack Ross will be relieved probably that they've been able to get through it, given their injury list and their suspension problems.
Get in with some comments coming in. Jerry H coming in to say if Aberdeen lose their next 3, then Glass will be joining him back in the USA. Daniel Mack coming in to say that Glass will soon be joining Ali McCoist on gardening leave. I've got to say I quite like Ali McCoist as a pundit. I've thought his stuff on BT is really good. That probably doesn't go down well with some of the Celtic fans or some of my fellow Celtic fans, but I quite like him. Right, let's take a look at our predictions for this game. As I said, if you're looking to stick this on the coupon, Aberdeen are 14-9, the draw is 11-5, and Hibs are 15-8. It is a 3:00 kickoff on Saturday, live on Red TV for your pay-per-viewing pleasure. Jake, we'll start with you. How do you see this one going?
I think it'll be fairly even, to be honest with you. As we mentioned, Hibs have got players out. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
A 1-1 draw. David?
Rob McLean will be the only positive thing about Aberdeen tomorrow afternoon. 2-1 Hibs.
2-1 Hibs. Yeah, and I'm going to show once again that I have this written down. It is a 2-1 Hibs victory, just the same as Feed the Bear comes in to say. I don't see the point where Stephen Glass turns this around. It's not as if I mean, Dave Cormack came out and says, oh, we've had this amount of possession, we've had this amount of shots, we've had this. I don't care. The only statistic that matters at the end of the day is that scoreline, and they're not scoring enough, and they're conceding far too many goals. And if you're continuing with David Bates at centre-back, I just don't see a way out for Aberdeen. I think he's honestly been one of the worst signings of the summer. And I don't think that's even been harsh on him. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 Hibs victory. We have 2 games left to cover. Jake, you got something you want to say on David Bates there?
No, it's all right. On you go.
2 games left to cover on the match day 10 of the Cinch Premiership. We have another 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, and to be honest, I have done this club a disjustice, so I'm going to bring up this comment that came in earlier on from Brian Harley, and it said, should it not be Hearts and Dundee United, seeing as they are above Celtic? They are indeed above Celtic. They are sitting in 3rd place at the minute, and I mean, depending on how this one goes, they too could also be top of the Premiership by the end of the day. They would probably need to win by about 6 or 7 goals, mind you. But Dundee United welcome Motherwell to Tannadice. If you're sticking this one on the coupon, Dundee United at home are 13-10, which isn't a bad price. 11-5 for the draw and 23-10 for a Motherwell victory. Dundee United undefeated in 5. Motherwell with the last 2 losses against Celtic and last one's against Rangers as well, I believe. Let's start with Dundee United. Sorry?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, Rangers, yeah. Let's start with Dundee United. 3-0 victory over Hibs. Tam Courts has came out today and he said to the fans to start dreaming big. He'll kind of manage his players' expectations, David, but he's telling the fans to dream big. How far could Dundee United realistically go this season?
It's funny because I was at the press conference myself yesterday. He was quite very big in terms of the fact that, yeah, Dundee United would start the season well, but when I asked him the question about the report card, he was like, I want more. And that's the exciting thing from a Dundee United point of view. They want more, and they've got a lot of good players, and they're playing a very good style at this precise moment in time. And Dylan Levitt picked up an injury last weekend. Declan Glass came in for his first game in 21 months and delivered a glassy game. Let's put it that way, a glassy game. His first game in 21 months, did very well before coming off, and Dundee United picked up a very good win all the same at Easter Road last weekend. And they entertain a Motherwell side tomorrow that aren't exactly winning at the moment. Obviously, defeat the Celtic last weekend, but also they're a side that are in need for that elusive win again. Are they getting at Tannis tomorrow? It's hard to say because Dundee United are these type of teams where you look at it and say if they're playing a so-called bigger side than them, and the bigger side I mean more quality than them, and their respectability level. You look at it and say, okay, Dundee United might run ragged like Hibs did in the Premiership Cup fair recently. And what Dundee United are really good at is having a balance at the back, but they're also having a really good balance in terms of going forward. Ryan Edwards and Charlie Mulgrew have been a really good partnership for Dundee United, and it's allowed the likes of Harks and Fuchs and Glass and Levitt timing the ball to go and play the ball forward, and it's probably helped in terms of their success.
Yeah, I have to say so. I'm going to bring some of the comments in. Graham Caldwell just clarifying that Motherwell lost to Hearts and not Rangers, so thanks very much for that one. Gallant Pioneer, we welcome all clubs of all teams in here, 55 times Kings of Scotland, most in football history. Not sure about that. I'm pretty sure there's a team that won over 100, but it's okay. It's all right. It doesn't matter. He's coming in to predict a 2-0 Rangers victory. I think we've all backed Rangers to get the points at the weekend. Jerry H coming in to say the bubble burst tomorrow, a 2-1 win for his home-time team, Motherwell, Van Veen and Watt. Now, I'm going to touch on Motherwell in a minute, but Jerry mentioned the strikers there, and the Gallant Pioneer obviously being a Rangers fan. Ex-Rangers striker Nicky Clark, he's been the one that's kind of been impressive for me for Dundee United so far this season. He only has 1 goal and 1 assist, but what I think he does is he leads that line very impressively. He got his goal at the weekend, and considering, Jake, that they're missing Mark McNulty, he's the kind of one that they've been able to go to. He's linking up the play, and so far so good for Dundee United and for Tam Courts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nicky Clark is probably not a player who's going to go and get you between 10 and 15 goals every season. But, he links the play very well. His goal, he did score against Hibs last week, and it was a great finish. Obviously, being a Dunfermline fan, I've seen a lot of Nicky Clark at Dunfermline in the Championship. And, as I said, he likes to play very, very well. He gets other players involved and he gets those assists. I know you said he's only got one so far, but, I just think that his build-up play is really influential for Dundee United. And if I was a United fan, I'd be so excited about Tam Courts. I think he's got real potential to go on and be a really, really great manager. He's had an absolutely outstanding start to his time as Dundee United boss.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he's one of those ones, David, that came in sort of under the radar. His last management job was in charge of Brora Rangers before Barry Ferguson took over there. He's been working in the background at Dundee United, and I think there was a kind of case of Tam who when he took over, but he's really been answering these critics this season.
Celtic Hearts, first and foremost.
Sorry, Celtic Hearts, yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's an up-and-coming manager, and I mean, he works 24/7. He's a workaholic, Tam Courts, and the philosophy he puts is very positive and very refreshing, which is very good to see. And Tam Courts, I'll go as far as to say that if he can go and have a few good seasons in Scotland, it might be the stepping stone to him going to England. I know it's a bit too much to say, and it's a massive statement to me to say at this point in time, but you look at it and say there's been good managers that have came out of Scotland and moved into England after doing well at their respective clubs. And if Tam Courts can do well, then the opportunities are endless. But he offers a good system to his teams. And Nicky Clark's not the most pivotal goal scorers when you look at it, but also he's a very intelligent forward, and he's a massive part in the way Tam plays his sides alongside the defensive midfield that I alluded to earlier on.
Yeah. Graham Caldwell coming in saying, "Come on, Colin, you're slipping up this evening. Very unlikely." You have one of these games. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way it goes. At the end of the day, blah blah blah, all that. We'll plod on through for the next 10-15 minutes before the Clyde podcast is on at 7. If you're interested in a club that's looking to bounce back after a heavy defeat, then definitely check that one out after their 5-0 loss to Montrose at the weekend. Gallant Pioneer came in to say that they took the 40-game unbeaten run off them. I think that was the turning point for Dundee United this season when they got that victory at Tannadice, and they've kind of not looked back since. And for me, this game against Motherwell is another chance to show that they are a team who have top 6 aspirations, and beating teams like that is the only way that you're going to end up in there, Jake.
Yeah, and they should have top 6 aspirations. I think they're a top 6 club, to be honest with you. They've got a decent fan base, a decent stadium, and now they've got a really good manager as well. Obviously, the game against Motherwell tomorrow is one that they'll be hoping to win. It is one I think they should win, albeit Motherwell have had a reasonable start to the season despite losing the last 2. But yeah, this is a game that United will really want to win to kind of not put down a marker as such, but show that they are a top 6 side and they can be consistent in their performances.
I'm loving this Greenock chat that's going on in the comment section as well. As a Greenock boy, it always it put a smile on my face when I see people that are ex-Greenock lads that are coming back and watching the show. So let us know where you are tuning in from. Thomas Law was pretty close to where I am right now, so that's nice to see. Motherwell, let's start with Mugabe. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Mugabe's tackle on David Turnbull at the weekend, David. Having looked at it back, I think it's one of those ones that the more you slow it down, it looks worse. But at the time, in top speed, I think it's a yellow card at worst.
I would agree. I mean, there was a bit of force in the challenge, don't get me wrong, but I would say yellow card at most, yeah.
And what do you think, Jake?
I mean, it's one of those ones where, the referee's got a certain view of it. He's got a split second to make a decision. But having looked at it, I would agree with you. It's a yellow card. I don't think it's a red. It's you can compare it if you want to Joe Aribo, his challenge as well, which I think that was a red card. But again, it's one of these ones you have to watch back and really analyse it before making a decision.
It'll be interesting, especially with the talk that Scottish football will be introducing VAR at some point this season, whether that be in the Scottish Cup or actually in the top league, whether these decisions will be reviewed. Because at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to the way that the referee interprets the rules. I mean, the referees obviously interpreted that there was no force or deliberate force in the Mugabe tackle. That's why nothing was given. It was a throw-in for Motherwell. And then when you look at the Aribo one, he's thought that there was sort of not enough force to generate the red card, and therefore he's given the yellow. So whether these come back and take a look at it, I don't know. But then again, the standard of Scottish refereeing is such that at the Motherwell Celtic game the other day, Willie Colin went off with a hamstring injury. So who knows how Scottish football will play out for the rest of the season. Speaking of that Motherwell Celtic game, Motherwell had 0 shots on target. Joe Hart was literally a spectator for that game. If you are the Motherwell manager, Jake, you've got to be hoping that that's just a blip and it's not something that you see again at Tannadice at the weekend.
Yeah, and I think it will just be a blip. You know, I quite like Tony Watt and Kevin Van Veen in particular. I think they link up very well together. You've got the likes of Kane Willery on the wing as well, and I think they can cause Dundee United problems. I think, you know, Celtic again against Motherwell were professional and they kind of stopped Motherwell from getting the ball down and creating chances. But yeah, you'll certainly be hoping it is a blip, and I think it will be. I think Motherwell should go. They might not be full of confidence, but I think they'll go and have a right good go at Tannadice.
Yeah, Dave Graham Alexander's another one who's got a lot of praise this season, especially for that bit of a run that Motherwell were on. Tony Watt had been kind of leading the line. Van Veen came off the bench at the weekend. It was maybe a kind of incorrect decision not to start him. This is a game that Motherwell will be looking to try and bounce back on, and it's going to be one of these tight ones for me. I'm going to put the prediction out here first so that none of you can steal it. I've went with a 1-each draw, and I just think that's the way that the game's going to go. I just think it's going to be two teams that are cancelling out each other.
Because I'm covering the game tomorrow, I think I have to sit in the fence here, Colin, so I'm going to go for a Desmond.
So you're going to go for a 2-2 draw?
I've got it written down here, sorry. I'm going to go for Dundee United to win 2-1. I think they'll continue their fine form.
Do you know, I wouldn't be surprised at any of those results coming in. I just think it's one of those games that's very difficult to predict. If you get a 2-2 draw, David, that'll be a cracking game of football.
Oh,
that's what I can predict. Graham Caldwell coming in asking the question. You have to admit that Motherwell should have had a penalty. It was a stonewall handball against Bolingoli. It was. I can't deny that. I said it at the time when I was at the game. I thought that we got away with one, and watching it back, it's definitely a penalty. One game left to cover, and it's potentially the sort of bogey game of the week. It is Ross County looking for their first victory of the season against a Livingston side who are kind of a bit out of shots this season. A 3-0 victory over St Johnstone, but a lot of that came down to the calamitous defending of Effie Ambrose and the St Johnstone backline. I've seen nothing like it. Bruce Anderson, though, let's speak about him. 1 goal, 2 assists, and when you look at it, despite Livingston's poor start to the season, Jake, if they win tomorrow and results go the other way, they could overtake Aberdeen and St Johnstone.
Yeah, and I mean, we mentioned it on last week's show in your absence, Colin, that, you know, Bruce Anderson hadn't started the last few games for Livingston, I don't think. I know he came off with an injury against Hibs, but I said, you know, Livingston weren't scoring goals until last week, and Bruce Anderson could be, you know, that could solve the problem for them. And, you know, he's came on, he's kind of proved me right there. I know he only scored 1, but he got the 2 assists. He was involved in it every single goal, and I think he will be pivotal for Livingston if they are to go above Aberdeen.
And again, I hate talking about managers losing their job, David, but you look at Malcolm Mackay, the start of the season they've got 2 points after 9 games. They've got this game against Livingston on Saturday. After that, they're away to Dundee, at home to Hibs, and away to Rangers. Can a manager really be sitting after 13 games with 2 points and realistically think, my job's okay?
No, and that's not on any level of football either. I mean, that's a terrible start from the Ross County point of view. You look at it and say, okay, fair enough. Their opening 5 games were against teams that were in the top 6, but you'd have looked at that and went, when Ross County play like St Mirren and other teams around about them, you'd have looked at that and went, okay, possibility for points. And this is a massive week for Ross County Football Club coming up. If they get 0 points out of 6, Malky Mackay is, in terms of his job scrutiny, it'll go up. It'll be through the roof, and it's a massive week for him. I mean, Livingston will have a lot of confidence after this result against St Johnstone last weekend, and Dundee are on a high as well after that result against Aberdeen. And yeah, as much as we don't like to see managers lose their jobs, but then Roy McGregor will also have a contingency plan in place if Malky Mackay does go. He does it with every manager he employs. There's always a plan in place. So if Malky Mackay was to see his Jotters Saturday night, there'd probably be a manager in by next midweek. So it'll be just to see if that conversations internally are taking place in Dingwall or not.
Jake, it was a big name appointment getting Malky Mackay in, and it was a bit of a risk considering his sort of past that he's had in the game.
Yep.
Where has it went wrong?
Honestly, I don't think Ross County fans are going to warm to the fact that Malky Mackay is their manager, to be honest with you. I know there was a huge uproar at the time. Not all Ross County fans, sorry. Not all Ross County fans have the same opinions, but, a majority do. And I think that could be causing a bit of an issue for them. Maybe fans potentially getting on the team's back, getting on Malky Mackay's back at the games. And I can only see it going one way, to be honest, for Malky Mackay. I can't see them getting a result anytime soon. And yeah, as I say, I could only see it going one way, and that's unfortunately for Malky Mackay, him losing his job. But, after me saying that, watch them go and beat Livingston 3-0, because that's exactly what happens.
Well, I'm going to start the predictions on this one because we're just about wrapping up the show ahead of the Clyde podcast. I think Livingston have just... They do enough, they play smart enough football to try and outsmart Ross County. I think Ross County just haven't gelled as a team. There've been far too many signings. There's been not enough consistency in that team. And for me, I think Livingston have got enough. I think Shinnie up front will run them ragged. Bruce Anderson scoring the goals. I'm going for a 2-1 Livingston win. David, I'll call to you.
I fancy Livingston to be professional, keep a clean sheet, and I'll go 1-0.
1-0 to Livingston. And Jake?
Yeah, I think Livingston will have enough as well. I've been really impressed. Well, I was really impressed last week in the highlights with Odin Bailey, who I believe is on loan from Birmingham. Not 100% sure, but I think he is. So I think Livingston will win 2-0.
And we wish the Livingston goalkeeper, his name's just slipped my mind, all the best as he makes his recovery from his cancer treatment. That's a horrible disease, and we wish him all the best. I think he'll be out of the game for a while, but we do wish that he comes back very, very soon. So we have covered all 6 games in the Cinch Premiership. Just a quick one, the question of the weekend then. If Ross County lose at the weekend, does Malky Mackay lose his job?
I think so.
I'll be honest and say I think he'll get Dundee Wednesday, and if he loses at Dundee, Jotters.
I think maybe the only reason he would get Dundee on Wednesday is because it's on Wednesday and they might not have someone suitable to come in and replace him for Wednesday's game. But yeah, I think it'll be this week.
100%.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. If you did join us late, then you can go back on the video and you can check out how we think that your team will get on. We've covered all 6 games. Thank you very much for joining us on the State of Scottish Football. We'll be back on Monday to review how the games have went. Until then, if you could leave a like on this video, a thumbs up, or subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Leave us a comment section below. And it really does help us as we continue to, hopefully, this time next year, be nominated for one of those awards that Axom won at the FCAs last week. However, your team is playing this weekend, unless on my behalf you're a St Johnstone fan, then all the best. Until next week, from all of us to all of you, goodbye and stay safe.